Hello and welcome to the south of France to the 20th Datacloud Global Congress. I'm now joined by Marangella, Chief Marketing and Product Officer at EdgeConneX. And Phil, always a pleasure. From Hawaii to Cannes.
Yes.
I think last time I saw you was in Hawaii.
Yeah. Somehow I'm sweating more here than I am in Hawaii. So.
It's just really hot here.
Yeah.
And I think it was less humid as well in Hawaii this year. In Cannes, it's a little bit humid this year.
Yeah, for sure. So.
But look, I saw you in Hawaii, January. We are now in June.
Yeah.
How do you think the industry has gone over the last 6 months?
I mean, as we talked about in Hawaii, I mean, we're kind of in this hyper speed moment right now with, cloud continues to scale. AI though is what's the game changer, both in terms of the scale and power to get to the data center, and then the scale to get to the racks, right? So we're working closely with kind of the chip manufacturers, the ecosystem of mechanical and electrical guys and so forth to ensure we can support those densities that even more so not just today, which we certainly can with liquid, but for tomorrow. As you know, these are long-term assets, right? So you want to ensure that they're not obsolete by the time they're built. So we're spending a ton of time in terms of our design, our build, and more importantly, our operations, right? So we can support the liquid in the data center. So
yeah, I think what you just said about the design being able to support things, we've seen some people kind of taking a step back to go and just redesign the facility, the architecture of the facility, to be able to support even just the weight load of liquid cooling and all that. But some people also seem to have gotten a little bit stuck to the point where, how do we plan for the data center of the next 10, 15 years?
Yeah.
Is there a point where it's like, you know what, you just got to crack on with it for now, build the one for what we need, for what we know, and then in 5 years' time, you will build the next one for the next 5 years? Or how do you really?
Partly, I mean, we think of it like a data center as a backplane, right? So you've got this platform within the data center that is flexible enough to support different cooling technologies, but that can also scale up to support, the different requirements that will be coming out, right? And the other challenge that we're also facing when we talk about flexibility is there's no standards. And the customers that we're seeing, we like to say build to suit, but also build to scale. But our customers that we have, they're across the spectrum in terms of their delta T, their flow rates, the filtration, all these there's hundreds of permutations. And so we have to have that kind of data center as a backplane that's very flexible to support all these things. And it requires close collaboration more than ever, right, with the likes of NVIDIA and the other chip manufacturers and Vertiv and Schneider and all these kind of guys, the server manufacturers on the one hand, and then our customers on the other hand. And so more than ever, there's this kind of close collaboration and communication between the entire ecosystem. And you got to think about supply chain too, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, what's your take on the supply chain? Because at the beginning of the year, we had some conversations around like the shortage of GPUs, chips, and all sort of stuff. Things seem to have gotten a little bit better since then, but
yeah, but the customer requirements, they need it kind of contract plus 12, contract plus 18. So you got to think differently there too, right? You have to do precast. You have to kind of global purchase agreements on log lead equipment, right? So, and that can be allocated where it needs to be around the world and so forth. So there's nothing holding up your ability to deliver because these guys want to bring those chips online. They're paying billions and billions of dollars for these chips. They want to bring them online as soon as possible. So you have to build as fast as possible as well.
Okay, and then you just mentioned you got to look at it from a global perspective as well, and you guys do have a global footprint.
Right.
Has it become harder to be a global brand in the last few months, in the sense of like the US kind of shutting down a little bit, Asia has become more isolated as well, Europe is now trying to forge its own path. Has it become harder to become a global brand?
No, I mean, I think, you have to think about the capital required as well, right? So these are massive investments and so forth. You need massive amounts of power. That becomes the long pole in the tent. The US is like, trying to get power at scale. Everybody's going after that, right? And it'll be interesting to see how things play out next year as power gets further and further consumed. People are trying to bring on alternative power sources. Europe's challenging, and so you're looking at different markets than the traditional flat D to provide, and be able to support the large language models and the training. And then in Asia as well, right? Obviously we've talked about it before, with Singapore's moratorium, Johor has popped up and Jakarta's popped up, and you're seeing beyond the Japan and Australia, certainly continued a lot of growth there, but kind of secondary markets as well. So it's just, it's just the speed and the volume is like unprecedented, right? And so you have to be very careful in terms of how you manage your resources and assets and focus and execute.
Okay, from a power standpoint, of course, we always hear there's a shortage of power. I mean, you look at Ireland, the best student in the classroom a few years ago, and now you can't build data centers until 2028 at least, and so it looks like it takes now 7 to 10 years to get power for a project. Do you fear that's going to be happening a lot more, especially in places like Europe? Do you think it's going to be happening a lot more in more cities? How can we get the power that we need? And nuclear is not really an option for the short term.
Right, right. I mean,
apart from France.
In Ireland, we've been doing natural gas generation for over 6 years. We've been doing it for a long time, and it's becoming a very viable alternative, and you're looking at alternative energy sources and so forth. So it is a challenge, and it makes it, even markets like Germany in terms of what you can do in, say, Frankfurt and looking at other places. Now you see the Middle East coming online. There's a lot of news out in the Middle East in terms of that. Obviously, they have a lot of power. Can they build that scale? Like, that's going to be the next wave in terms of what you're seeing with the government support. That's what's important, is to see these governments recognizing the value and the benefit that data centers and digital infrastructure can provide to their local economies. And so we'll have to see. Some places will be better than others and more supportive than others.
Okay. Actually, picking up the Middle East, and I can think straight, for example, like of Saudi, because I was having this conversation with someone yesterday. There are some issues around human rights. There are some issues around the government might be able to access the infrastructure, get access to the data. How would you build in a region like that? Would you, for example, favor the creation of data center embassies where the data center is actually part of the US, even if it's in Saudi, like the US embassy in Riyadh? How do you navigate that? Or do you just build for the national local market?
No, I mean, it's an interesting concept, that kind of digital embassy concept. It's something to kind of evaluate all the variables, political, social, economic, and what have you. We're always driven by our customers, right? Obviously the hyperscalers, the large AIs, the neo clouds, if you will, and so forth. So trying to figure that out in concert with them and what works best is certainly going to be part of the plan going forward.
Okay, I guess one of the other biggest challenges as well is people. So finding the right people to work in this industry. We are lacking, 100,000, 200,000 people in the
300,
sector.
I think.
300 now.
Yeah,
So it keeps growing.
Yeah.
How are we going to find these 300,000 people to build this new world of AI? Because even if you find the power, if you've got the cash, we are actually now starting to really feel the pinch of the people side.
No, that's a great question, and we're kind of touching on a lot of the themes of our kind of mission or motto, which is customer, people, planet, right? So I talked about, we focus on our customers. We, from a sustainability standpoint, obviously focusing on the planet and being as green and as possible and sustainable as possible. From a people standpoint, obviously we take care of our people as much as possible, but it's the next generation, right? And so we're here in Monaco. That's right. We moved we're in Cannes. Sorry, edit that. And then. So we're here in Cannes, and working with the iMasons. EdgeConneX has been a founding member, but we've also worked with the Duke of Edinburgh charity. So what's fantastic about that charity is they have access to hundreds of high schools and college kids, so kids between 14 and 24. One of the challenges we had at the iMasons is the access to the schools. We had started the Capstone program with the historically black colleges and universities in the United States. But to be able to truly scale that to as many students as possible, this is what the Duke of Edinburgh brings. So we had an MOU just announced a few hours ago here, so we're going to use that to kind of really scale up and partner together. They have the schools and the kids. The iMasons has the industry, has the internships, the jobs, all the mentorship and so forth. So it's a perfect synergy that we launched here today.
Yeah, okay, very cool.
Yeah.
And the question you hate the most when I ask you,
I know it.
It's what new markets are you looking at? Markets, literally new ones.
Djibouti.
Are you?
Yeah, and no. Let's see. What new markets can I tell you?
I don't know if you were like joking or not.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm actually going to go there.
No. So, I think it's, to be honest, we have the scale we're talking about. It's actually fewer markets. So it's really focusing on where we have large scale capacity in support of the hyperscalers and continue to build out that, right? So there's not going to be necessarily new dots. It's just going to be significant expansion in the dots that we're already in. Where you might see new dots is more like, say, in the US, we have a robust edge footprint, and it's kind of the large scale footprint in like New Albany, right? In Austin, right? And we'll kind of continue to build out at scale in the US.
Will you also be going to more the overflow markets in the US, so around Northern Virginia?
That was,
California?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, we're headquartered there, but that's actually one market we don't have anything. I mean, I live there. It's extremely saturated, and there's a lot of challenges from a power. So yeah, you look further south or to the north. We're always looking at opportunistic properties in that region, and you know, we'll see how it goes.
Okay. So I really wanted to say the last question, but actually, because you said that about properties, are you then envisioning more for an organic or inorganic growth pipeline?
I think you've seen us traditionally organic in terms of doing that. But in the same vein, if there's an inorganic opportunity that comes along and makes sense, then by all means, you'll like tuck-ins that will kind of complement our existing footprint and portfolio. We're always looking at those things, like everybody is, right?
All right,
So,
all right. Last question, one word to describe 2025.
it's kind of hot.
It's very hot right now.
Literally, figuratively, it's a hot time, you know? So, I mean, the server rooms are hot, and we're trying to keep them cool, and it's really
use
hot
the heat
here.
for other things as well.
Yeah, exactly. So,
no, cool. Well, Phil Marangella, Chief Marketing Officer and Product Officer at EdgeConneX.
Cool.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
excellent.
As for your home, thank you for watching, and do check our website and socials for the latest digital infrastructure news from across the globe. At the Tech Capital, you lead, we report. Bye for now.